What up YouTube, Lost Planeswalker here, and today we're doing a deck building strategy video. Now the video strategy I'm going to give you is one I've been using now for 3 years, because I've been playing the game for 4 years. Everybody has a different way to build decks. There is no right, and there is no, well, there is a bit of a wrong way, sort of, but I'll explain that as we go building. So I'm going to build a brand new deck, walk you through the steps, and hopefully if you are a new player who's joining the game, you may find this useful. If you are a long-time player who's had a few struggles with deck building, I'm also hoping this is helpful. Now my strategy is a bit different to a lot of veteran players, and that's kind of because of my view on the game. So I'm going to be building what's called a pauper deck, which is rares, commons, uncommons, because that is the sort of theme I go for in deck building. And the reason for that is mythics and masterpieces are some of the most sought after cards in the game, but they're also the most tricky to come by. When you get a new deck or a new card, you can always, if it's a dupe, for example, you will always get crafting orbs, and it's always easier to craft commons and uncommons and rares than it is to craft a mythic. So in this deck building, we're just going to go through commons and rares, and then I will show the steps of what to do next since you've built the deck and you've tested it. And if you do find a mythical, then with these deck tips, you can then rejig your deck essentially to fit in these mythical masterpieces without ruining the flow of a deck. Because sometimes when you get mythical masterpieces, it's very easy just to throw in a deck because it's big, it's shiny, it has some strong abilities, but it might not actually be useful. It might be a little bit more damaging or may ruin the flow of the deck. So we're in training grounds, which is probably one of the best places for players to play. So let's see. So as you can see, there's a lot of planeswalkers I have, and right off the bat, I would probably build one for Shiok, Sculptor of Fears, because it's got really nice utilities. Maybe Dakin, which is probably one of the strongest, but not my favourite, Triwalkers. However, I'm not going to do that. If you see, the best option for beginners or anybody who just really wants to test decks or see how a deck can work is mono. Now, mono walkers are very, very restricted in their colours because you can only use one colour, whereas someone like Casmina can use blue and green, so you've got more freedom with green conversion, green big creatures like Galta, or maybe black and white, where you can, some black kill spells, some white angels, and they're really good for newer players. But when you're learning to build a deck, if you can build a working restricted deck in mono, then you can easily take them skills to a dual or a triwalker. So if you've just started playing, the first step is pick a mono walker that you like. I use Jace Unraveler of Secrets. It's one of my favorites mono walkers. 104 health, so it's got a minor health pool, but it's still quite a useful planeswalker. So the first step to building a deck is not building a deck. And it sounds counterintuitive, but the biggest thing you need to remember when building a deck is how does your planeswalker work? Because when you're building a deck, you want to synergize with your planeswalker. If you build a deck that doesn't utilize your planeswalker, you could be missing out on some useful and helpful combinations. So Jace Unraveler Secrets, his first ability, 9 loyalty, gain 4 mana per support you control on board. So knowing that, you can then say, right, I have 2 free supports on the board. I'm going to get about 12 mana casting it. And that's going to be very helpful since the more mana a creature needs, the more mana a creature has, the more mana it will need. And sometimes having higher mana cards can really ruin your luck. His second for 12 loyalty, Study. Discard 1 card, then investigate 4. Investigate is basically 4 clue tokens. Clue tokens have 2 shields. Every turn they lose a shield. When they're destroyed, you draw a card. Now, if you can drop Study and then investigate the next turn, you gain quite a lot of mana. study is also useful if you have a spell or a creature that you don't need. You could easily rejig your hand to put it at the back, then use study to discard it to then investigate. And then for 21 loyalty, you have Unravel. Create a spot with when you draw a card, each of your creatures gain +4/+4. Again, you can then, off the bat, really see that this Planeswalker is about drawing. You draw to get an effect. And now you know that, you can then start thinking, my creatures really need to get benefit from drawing. So I need to build a deck around drawing and basically keeping your hand fresh. And then you can then beef your creatures up, and it's going to be a win. Mana bonuses, neutral to white, red, and green. So a neutral mana bonus basically means when you match 3 white gems, you get 3 mana because every gem is worth 1 mana. So if you match 5 whites, you get 5 mana. It's blue is 5/5 mana. It's black is +4. So that basically means if you match 3 blues, you're getting 3 mana plus the 5 bonus. So you're getting about 8 mana per blue match. Black, you're getting 7. So that's quite handy because when you're building this, you don't want to be matching into colours like white, red, or green because you're not going to get as much utility or useful. And that's quite important when you come to deck building. So let's jump into the deck building. And there we go. We're going to card pool. And then what you want to do is, I'm going to do it because I've got a lot more cards. You want to then click your rarity. And there we go. We've got commons and rares. So first step, always the first step in my opinion, is you want to go for supports for land. So first land I'm going to pick, if we can find them, for this type of deck. I think it'll be easy if I search land. So using your search function is always helpful. So land, you've got lots of options: red, green, green, blue, white, black, red, white. Now, tons of different things. Now, the lands I like to run with Jace is these Damarian two shields because they can't be reinforced. So you're going to get some mana gains from all these lands because they convert 2 gems to blue or red, and then it will help fuel this first if you get into it. Now, the biggest thing you really need to understand when you're building a land is a lot of lands have or in them, so blue or red. So I've lost it. Where's it gone? Now it's red or green. So this is where you've got to really study your Planeswalker. So if my Planeswalker had a -1 to red, that would be basically means if you match 3 reds, you get 3 mana -1, so you only get 2 mana. So you've got to be really careful about your lands. You don't want to throw in a land like green and white, for example, because in this deck I'm getting neutral to green and white. So I'm only going to get 3 mana to green and white. So you really need to highlight what's important. So blue and red in here is going to be fine because blue gems and red gems. Red I'm going to get just normal 3 mana. For blue I'm going to get 3 mana plus its bonus, which is quite handy. So we'll add one of them. The second land, let's see, we're going to go blue or black. Contaminated Aquafire, 8 mana, common, 2 shields, can't be reinforced. Blue or black, very handy in this deck because blue is +5, black's +4, so you're getting good bonus. And next, you want to go to creatures. And the reason for this is, we've got a land, let's go for a creature. So the best thing for this deck is, what do you want your creatures to do? As this deck is based off clue tokens, investigations, and drawing, it's best to try and find something that gets an effect from drawing. So we'll put draw. And let's see what we have. We have lots of different cards that do things. For this deck, I'm going to go with a bit of a heavy one, and that is a rare Niv Mizzet Guild Pact. When this creature deals combat damage to Planeswalker, deal X damage to the first opposing creature and gain X life, then draw X cards. X is the number of colours with 5 more gems on the board. I think this is really good because it's going to synergize with the draw effect. So the first spot, when I draw a card, you're going to gain you gain +4. So with this, when it attacks, it's going to deal X amount of damage and draw X cards. So if you've got an empty hand, you're going to draw and you're going to fuel his second. With his third, it's going to beef it up. So +4, it's going to be a 10. So every time it draws, it's going to go 4. What's also interesting with this is because you're going to be drawing this card, if you have enough loyalty for his 9th, combined with the non-reinforced lands, you're then going to be able to probably fuel them up. Let's see what else we can do for draw. A lot of cards, so this is really good. So 12 mana uncommon, Quasar, Aegir of Agonies. When you draw a card, your opponent loses 2 life and gains 2 life. Blue doesn't really have a lot of life gain, so again, we're going for another draw effect. So this is going to really synergize with his third. So you're going to draw a card with Nizet. So Nizet's going to draw, and then while you're drawing, you're also going to be gaining life. So if Greg has, I will add actually, Greg is the nickname we give to the AI opponents. So Greg's going to lose life, you're going to gain life, so it's going to be a nice little... There's a couple good synergy. And this also synergizes with his 4th, because you draw, you gain life, you're then also going to get a +4 bonus. So these 4 cards, at the moment, this is essentially the best way to build the deck. You pick your lands and the 2 creatures that are going to synergize the most off your Planeswalker's abilities. So right now we've got Gilpack going to draw, then that will synergize with his first, because with the supports on the board, we'll get some mana. If we don't want to put another Niv down, we could always put Niv to the bottom, discard it with his second to investigate, and then his investigate will also trigger Quasar, because when it draws, when the clue token is destroyed, Quasar is going to deal 2 damage and gain 2 life. So right now, off the bat, we've got the basis of any deck is 4 cards to start with. And the reason I build it like this is how you get a really good idea out of your 10 deck of what to do next. So I've got 2 creatures. You may go for 3, but there is a reason I've gone for 2, and I'll explain that soon. You've got your 2 creatures that are going to synergize with the Planeswalker. You then need to match how much mana you're going to gain, because with these non-reinforcing beings, I'm going to get double the type of land. So if I cast 2 of them, I get 2. They're not going to reinforce. So you're going to get quite a lot of mana generation. And mana generation what you need for these abilities. So with Quasar, you're going to fill that up quite quick. So if you're going to get 8 mana plus a normal 3. So a good 4 swap or a good 5 swap could charge it quite quick. You don't really, when you're building creatures, Planeswalker, you don't really want to be putting something in with like Ovika, for example, 25 mana, or Sweet Shoot Cave Guard for 23, and not have enough mana to get them into play. So you've always got to make sure that put your lands in first, so you know how much mana you want to do, and then once you figured out how much mana gains you're going to be getting, put your creatures in, and if you're still missing mana gains, you could always go to your spells. Now, a spell that I really think is useful for mana gains is Cut Your Losses. Destroy the top 10 cards of your opponent's library, convert 10 gems to blue. So conversion, it's going to fill your hand with mana. It's got casualty, so when you cast this card, you may destroy a target which you control with power equal to or greater than this casualty's value. If you do, create a copy of this card in your hand, then this card gains full mana and loses casualty. Really, if you're in like an early game or a late game and you really need to get some cards out, you could always destroy your weakest creature, which in this point is Quasar, to copy this, get some more conversion. So, what next? Well, the next step is you've got your mana gains, which is Molten, Contaminated, Cut. You've got Niz and Queer for your creatures that are going to synergize with each other, but they also synergize with Planeswalker. This is useful. Next, you need basically to stay alive, and that is removal. So for this removal, we're going to use Void Rend. Void Rend, 9 mana rare. Can't have its mana drain under raised. Very useful. Destroy an opposing Vanguard support. If you can't, destroy target opposing creature. If you can't, destroy an opposing support. All round, very good removal for Vanguards and creatures. We're also going to use Charm. Charm. Broker's Charm. If there are 6 more green gems, your first creature gains +1, +0 on second turn. Deal damage equal to the creature's power of the first opposing creature. Very useful removal because that is permanent damage, so it's going to be useful. White gems, destroy an opposing enchantment. If there's 6 more blue gems, draw 2 cards, again 6 mana. Again, it's the drawing effect. So we're drawing cards. So all of this is in it, and this is the whole thing where you need to learn about Planeswalker. No matter what creatures you have in this game, you could file them all into a deck and hope for the best. But if you do not get much synergy with your Planeswalker and the Planeswalker's abilities, you could find yourself running into problems against your opponent who may have a little bit more strength and more synergy with their Planeswalkers. So I always recommend 2 or 3 removals in a deck. I don't think I can use the card I normally do, so type in Destroy or Exile. Let's see. Turn to Frog, one is a really fun card. Target destroyed, and it's replaced by a 1/1 blue frog creature. It's an Origins card, so it will always be in Standard, so it's very fun. We got Disrupting Conversion. When you cast a card, destroys that card of each player's library. Target creature gains a permanent buff of -X, -0. X is the number of cards in your control's graveyard. You could combine that with Cut Your Losses, so it's going to be -10. But one of the really good cards if you run in blue is Fish. Fish. Sleep with the Fishes. Disable target opposing creature and create a Fish token. Fish token is a 1/1 unblockable. I usually get rid of it. But disabling is very useful against your opponent who has Into the Battlefield effects, or something like Niz who has a really annoying deal X damage when it attacks. So if that is disabled, it's not going to attack. So in this deck, I try and keep things as 2, 4, and 4 because you're trying to get to 10. But it doesn't always work. You can actually flexible. So we're going to go back to supports. And let's see if there's any destroy supports. If there's not, destroy. So there isn't many supports that's going to destroy. These all seem to gain effects from being destroyed themselves. So what we're going to do? Well, when we think back to what our Planeswalker does, it has a lot of draw effects. And then we have, when your first creature attacks, your first creature gains +1, in turn, then investigate. When it's destroyed or loses a reinforcement, draw a card. That's quite interesting. Investigate, create a clue token. You draw a card when it's destroyed. Then we've got the cases, which if you control 3 more artifact cards, this card gets solved. Then in turn, destroy a spot and create 3 bird illusions, which is 1/1s. I quite like Curious Inquiry. It's a 6 uncommon for 3 mana enchantment. First creature attacks, it's going to get a bonus. It's going to investigate. And investigating is quite good because you put in more and more tokens, spot tokens on the board to fuel his first, so you get more mana. Now the last card is the reason why I've got 2 creatures, is Drain? I can never spell it. I am dyslexic, so I apologize, I'm not very good at spelling. That's the one. Detective? There we go. Drag the Canal. Surveil 2, then investigate, create 2 detective tokens, then your creatures gain vigilance until the beginning of the next turn. Detective tokens are 2/2 creatures. And surveil, pick up to the top X cards on top of your pick up the X cards on the top 4 cards of your library, put those into your graveyard, and the rest on top of your library. So you're going to pick 2 cards from your 4 cards, they're going to go into your graveyard, and you're going to fetch the rest. This is very good utility to essentially really know what you're drawing next turn. Now we have hit the spell limit of 5 spells, 5 spots, and 7 creatures. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of new players make is they may put 3 creatures in and then a token generator. Sadly, you can only have 3 creatures on the board. So my idea for building this deck will have Niz and Queza to synergize with each other for drawing, and the third spot is left for Drag the Canal, and that is also going to help us mill our cards to try and get into the cards we need. Curious is going to help us draw when it investigates, which is going to help with Quasar, and it's also going to fill the board with supports that are going to help us fuel his first loyalty ability, which will help us gain mana. So all of this, if we slow down and go through the process a little bit slower and see the strategy as we try and apply this to another walker, which I will do a tri-walker or a dual, I haven't decided yet. So the steps realistically is land is the first card you want to put in a deck. Creatures is the next step, and you want to look at creatures that either synergize with each other or synergize with your Planeswalker. Then you want your spells that are either going to do removal or they're going to disable your opponent to basically control the field. I always recommend 1 draw spell in every deck. The reason is you don't want to run out of draw, so I always recommend at least 2 to 3 removals and 1 draw, or maybe 1 removal, 1 disable, and 1 draw, and then another mana conversion, because you can sometimes win by speed. And then then your next supports is what other effect you want to go for in your deck, what you want your deck to do, essentially. So in this deck, I really want to focus really much on getting as much supports on the board to fuel this first, draw cards to gain some health, and also hit his third ability so I can get everything buffed up with a +4. So that is the win con of my deck, is basically big creatures that hit hard. And now I know, and I only know that win con by studying my Planeswalker. So we've got our lands, we've got creatures, we've got our spells, and we've got our filler cards I've just basically put in to reach the objective of our goal. So let's use this deck and let's go. Who we're first in? It's a bit slow. We're versing Sarkhan, Tricolor Walker. This is going to be deadly because Sarkhan has a very big habit of running Goto, Atraxa, and Turtle. And this might be useful because if we can use Sleep with the Fishes to disable, they could win. There we go. So there's a land. So the first step you want to do is you always want to make sure you're locking down a removal card. You don't want to cast a removal card too early. And you always want to make sure you get your lands out quick. So we've rearranged it so our first card to come out will be a land. We've locked down Voidrend as a removal, and Curious Inquiry is okay to cast anytime, even though we've got no creatures. So right now, the game is suggesting we make this match here, which is a good option to make. So make that, and we get enough mana to cast a land. Getting a land down as quick as possible. That is not a good card to get out. So we'll do that. And we've got Broker's Charm. So we're going to make this black match. It's got Ward. Now Ward is very interesting because it's going to make you drain cards. So we're going to remove him off the board because we don't want that card. That card gets big quick. So we've got Sunken Citadel. Sunken Citadel is a very interesting card because it's a land type that doesn't give you mana. Instead, it increases your mana bonuses, so you can do some shenanigans. See, there you go. It increases mana bonuses, so it can win games quicker. Sleep with the Fishes, I'm going to lock down, and what we're going to do is we have 2 supports on the board, so we're going to cast his first, gain 4 mana per support, so we should get 8 mana. And there we go, 8 mana sorted, so we can cast Drag the Canal and Contaminate Aquifer. And this is why synergy is important. You don't want to build. Let's just get. Yeah, we'll do that. You don't want to build a walker with a deck with tons of different effects that are not going to synergize with each other, but also are not going to synergize with the Planeswalker itself. And so as you can see, we surveilled and we put these two at the top of our deck because these are the next big strategies we need on the board. And that is our detective going to support going to work, and there is big evil Golter. Not good indeed. Let's see what happens. Bolus. Void Rend is going to take detective tokens. That is never good. However, luckily for us, we had Sleep with the Fishes locked down. And it's important to have Sleep with the Fishes or a removal lockdown for situations like this because Golter is very irritating. So we've got a few more spots on the board. Let's cast that so we get a bit of mana so we can now have our creatures and our lands. Now we are at a problem now that we've run out of cards in our hand, and that can be quite damaging if your opponent can get something big and something nasty on the board, which is why you always need like a draw effect, and this is going to work. I'm going to lock down cut losses for now, and we managed to draw some cards because of the investigation tokens, clue tokens being destroyed. So there we go. And now you see the synergy in action. We're dealing damage, we're drawing, and we're gaining health. So it's a good little synergy there. And we're almost at our third, which is what we need. Luckily, that was not a good match. But luckily we do have Broker's Charm. It's going to be Void Rend on the board. And we also have cut losses. So we're going to get a bit of gem conversion right now. Here we go. So we're going to get some gem conversion, which is always handy. Void Rend is very good because it always targets Vanguards first, and it's always good to get Vanguards off the board as quick as possible because Vanguards are frustrating to deal with, even though I'm not a fan of them. Okay, right now we're going to put Niv and Quasar in a grave so we can fetch another land, and then we're going to investigate, create a clue token, and we're already up to our third. So there we go. And that's why I use Broker's Charm, because we can sometimes use our own opponent's effect to granted. And there we go. We've got a nice synergy going. So what's he going to cast next? That creature. Oof. That's going to hit me quite hard. Right. Now, the most logical step right now would be probably to cast his third so we can draw. However, that creature up there is quite an annoyance, so we're going to cast his first instead to fill our hand. So we're going to drain a hand. I don't know why that didn't work, but instead we're going to disable it. We're not going to create the fish token because the fish token is useless. Void Rend will take out that token because it's a bit of a nuisance. And now we're going to draw more cards and we're going to get a bit more health. And perfect. That is exactly what we wanted this deck to do. We're synergizing with each other. All the cards are working in partnership, and we've got enough land and mana conversions to essentially make sure that we've got enough on the board to cast what we need. Because in this moment in time, if we didn't have the cards we had, we may have run into trouble with Gold dominating the field. So we're going to do cut losses to gain some mana to cast some more cards. We're not going to use its casualty effect because we don't really need it. Because we've got enough of them in hand, and we don't really want to, at this stage in the game, remove our creatures from play. If you remove the creatures from play too early, you could end up losing. So again, I just picked 2 cards I don't think is valuable at the moment, just so we can try and fetch more creatures. However, I am going to try and see if we can fetch into Sleep Fishes and Quasar, just in case in next turn Greg is able to get his mana up to the point that we're going to struggle. Okay, we've got Sleep Fishes, perfect. Now, at the moment, we are dominating the board. Unless he does something crazy. Void Rend. Okay, that's nothing crazy because we've got Hexproof. So as we're dominating the board now, it's very a safe opportunity now to drop the third. And that's kind of another point. I'm going to get Void Rend out of the way, just for when we're drawing. There we go. All fours on the board. We're going to lock down Sleep with the Fishes because we don't really need it. And then we're going to go into a free match. We're going to get free mana, which is okay. So we're going to draw. And as you know, we're now drawing, so he's going to get bigger. So next turn, we're going to basically win the game. Unless our opponent does something scary. Okay, what scary shenanigans have you got up your sleeve? Nothing. There we go, there's our mana conversions. Let's see, let's cast this. We fill hand back up. Then we're going to go into green match with drop down Quasar. With the Veil, we don't need Quasar or anything, but we don't really need the cards either. And there we go. So that's going to win the game. And there we go. That's a game built. And now, Mono Walkers are very weak because of the colour. So the odds of us winning are stacked against us because our opponent Greg has more access to different colours. But because we focused on synergizing with our Planeswalker, maximizing our conversion, and also maximizing what we need for removal, it was quite easier for us to win because we had all the pieces needed to make the deck work. Now, a lot of problems you have that I had when I first started is putting random cards in a deck that look cool, they look shiny, but sometimes that can be detrimental if they're not going to work with each other or they're going to counter each other. It's going to be very, very bad. So what we're going to do is now we're going to go to a Dual Walker and we're going to really use the steps again that we just did with Jace. But now you can see that once we know how to do those steps, what it's like if we did a bigger walker. So we are going to this time, we're going to go a little bit more crazy. We're going to go mythic and masterpiece. So gem conversion first. So the first gem conversion I'm going to use is Leyline of the Guild Pact. Beginning of your turn, convert 6 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. Perfect. A second gem conversion we are going to use. Let's see, let's look. Red Land. Red Land is always good. Okay, Red Land. So we've got quite a few options here. Let's see, what can we do? I really do like these. Sadly, they are going to be rotated out in fall of this year. But if you have an X amount of gems on the board, you will get in some amount of mana. So red, green, blue, red, red or white. So again, it's going to help with our Planeswalker colors. We don't want to contradict our Planeswalker colors. And then we're going to go for creatures. Now, this Planeswalker does a lot of work about exiling. So you really want to use creatures that are going to benefit from exile. And one of them creatures is Aurora's Vindicator. Beginning of your turn, if this card is in your hand, increases card level by 1, disguise 10. When this creature is revealed, exile the first X cards from your graveyard. When this creature attacks, return the first X cards from your exile to your hand. X is this card's level. The last 2 cards in your hand get full mana. It's very useful to give us mana, but also plays around with our exile. So, another card we would use would be, I would probably want to use Croxer, but I'm very aware of the mana gains. So I'm going to use a bit of a smaller card to try and get onto the board a little bit quicker. Let's see what we can find. Here we go, Knight of the White Orchard. When this creature enters the battlefield, convert 5 gems to white. It's 14 mana, origins, rare, defender, and first strike. It's quite a little bit cheaper to cast than Aurala's Vindicator, so it's more of a card to use on the battlefield. So similar steps as before, we have our converters and our creatures that are going to synergize with a Planeswalker, which, apologize, I should have shown the Planeswalker first. So I will backtrack that in a second. Again, a draw effect, because we always want draws. I'm going to use Riveter's Charm in this deck, because Riveter's Charm, if there's black gems on the board, we're going to destroy the first opposing support or creature. If there are red gems, draw 3 cards again. Outcast, those cards get mana is the amount of red gems. Outcast exiles cards at the end of a turn if they're not cast. So any spell cards of exiles with Outcast is going to be put into your exile, which is going to be really useful to do. For the 6 more green gems, exile all cards from your opponent's graveyard. So Riveter's Charm is quite useful. We need that's one draw. So we're now going to look at removal. Voidrend is a fun removal spell. So Voidrend. Another good removal spell, Exile. Exile's always good. Let's see. What exile ability can we use? Legions of the Ashes is a really fun one. Exile each opposing non-emblem token support. If you can't, exile an opposing token creature of the greatest number. If you can't, an exile an opposing card at random. Really fun, cheap spell. 8 mana for a rare, white and black. This is why a lot of times dual walkers are really cool, because you can experiment with different combinations. So right now, we have the basis. We have gem conversion, creatures that will synergize with our Planeswalker's abilities, a draw, 2 removals. So the next is filler cards are going to basically work with our win condition, which is feeding our exile and control on board. So for one, we're going to use Blood Splatter Analysis. When this spot enters the board, deal X damage to opponent's Planeswalker, X number of creature cards in all graveyards. Beginning of your turn, deal 3 damage to a random opposing creature. When a creature dies, destroy some card in your library. It's going to help us really run into destroying a creature. Let's see what other spells we can. I don't need no rare. I always like to single out different rarities just to find ones that we might need. What should we use? So we've got now we've got basic ideas of the deck. We've got creatures that are going to synergize with abilities. We've got mana conversion. It's now finding cards that are going to help us get into what we need. And one of them I'm going to use is the Belligerent. When the spot ends board, your first creature with power 3 more against Pilot. Beginning of your turn, creatures you control with Pilot gain 5/5 at turn to turn. When your first creature attacks, create a gold token, then draw a card. It's going to help us draw, gain mana, and gold tokens also help gain mana. And then I think we're going to use, because we see what other spell we can do. Now, Alchemist Gamble would be really good to give us an extra turn right now, so we can make sure that we're not doing too much damage to ourselves if the opponent's running ahead. But I'm a bit worried that we might not be good enough in this deck. So instead, what we're going to use will be, I think, Relive the Past maybe. Return the first 3 cards from your graveyard to your hand, convert 3 gems to green. No, this is a red-white Planeswalker. It's not going to get much use from green conversion, even though it looks like a fun card. Summon 4 2/2 knights with vigilance, 8 more white gems board. All your creatures gain different damage. It would be nice, but we are running red, so you've always got to make sure you know what you're doing. I think I'm going to put in World Soul's Rage. It's got flash, so it can be. If it's disabled in your hand, I may cast it when my opponent's creature attacks. When your opponent's Planeswalker converts gem, it's card in your hand, it creates level X amount of converted gems. Deal X damage to any target, X equals to 5 plus this card's level. Perfect. It's good removal, but also can target our opponent's Planeswalker. So let's go over this quite slowly, and we'll go step by step. So first of all, we've got our mana conversion. Our creatures that will synergize with a Planeswalker's abilities, but also may work well with each other. We've got a draw spell and a removal, a secondary removal, a support that will also act as a removal, another draw removal, another draw converter, mana gainer, and another removal. So this is the basic steps for any deck. We've got draw, creatures, removal, all the way through, and that is the basics of any deck. Now let's look at the abilities. 3 to white, 1 to blue, 1 to red, 3 to black, 3 to red, neutral, and neutral. So this is why this is good. This is why I try what Jewel Walker is really good. The mana bonus is a little bit higher, and you get more to play with the colors. Leave no stone unturned. 7 loyalty. Exile top cards from the library. Then those cards gain an emblem. You gain X life and number cards with Lawhold emblem in your graveyard in your exile. So our mythic really works well with a card that's going to work from exile. Then we've got our secondary creature that's going to work well with converting gems to try and push us into getting enough loyalty for this ability. So as you can see, we've got 2 creatures that will synergize with each other. Call of the Ancients. Create 5 archaeological spirit tokens. They are 3/2 defenders. When a card leaves your graveyard, it gets +1/+1 only once per turn. As you can see, we did 2 creatures because we know our second is going to make a token, and I like using this token a lot. So when getting that synergy in, as you can see, our deck is working in synergy with our Planeswalker, and that is a big key. Last one, which I don't use as much as I should. Lawhold's Knowledge. Deal X damage to the opponent's creatures and Planeswalker. Convert X gems to red. X is number cards with the Lawhold emblem in your exile. And create a sigil token. This spot can't be reinforced. At the beginning of your turn, deal X damage to your opponent's Planeswalker. Destroy X non-red gems. X number cards with the Lawhold emblem in exile. So this Planeswalker is really going to work off its first, essentially. You want to spam his first as much as possible, which is why we're focusing on, when the deck wants to load, conversion, to try and get as much conversion on the board to do this. Some removal to make sure that we're surviving a little bit longer. Again, another bit of removal to see if we're surviving a bit longer. Opponents will always have ways to make mass conversions, which is why Wurzel's useful. And then a couple of draw options to make sure we're getting the cards we need in play. Now, also, the reason why we're going with 2 creatures, I should make this known, is the cloak tokens you create from cards with disguise, they sadly count as a token. So if you are building this deck, you can't cloak it with 3 creatures. You will always have to have a 3 creature slot for this token till it is flipped to be this card. So you've always got to be mindful of what your cards do. You don't want your cards to basically do something and not work. So if you want to get Vinegar out for cheap, you would want to cast it for 5 mana with Cloak, and then drain 10 mana from your hand to flip it. So it's going to cost you 15 mana to cast over its standard 20 mana cost. Now, a lot of players may want to build 3 creatures that synergize, but the problem is you will then have to make sure you have enough mana to get it out for this full 20. Whereas this way, we're building the deck to get out a little bit cheaper. And that's why we need that extra creature spot open. Okay, let's use this deck. We're going against Liliana. Now, this is actually the last big deck building tip I'm going to give everybody. Click your opponent if it works. It used to work. Yes, it works. When it wants to load. This is a little sneaky tip that I found a while ago. I can't remember if someone told me in Discord or not. Is you want to click your opponent's name. And the reason is that a lot of opponents will have favorite decks. Now, sadly, this deck that I'm going against doesn't. But if they do have their deck favorited, so let's say we were in Legacy right now and it was a Bolas, you can see what deck they're playing, and then you can rebuild your deck to counter what they're doing. It's why I don't actually favorite my decks, because I like my decks to be a surprise. Right now, this deck isn't in his favorites, but if it was in his favorites and we were to click his name and look at his favorite decks, we would then be able to rebuild our deck to counter using the strategies I've put in place. So removal, gem conversion, creatures. So you'd be able to work against it. So let's say it was this Ral in Legacy, we will know that it's a loop-based deck. So we would want to build around creatures and support that really stop decks from looping, or removal spells. So we'd want enough mana conversion to pull into removals, and enough draw to pull into cards that will help us remove. It's a bit rubbish that this Planeswalker isn't his favourite, because it will be then quite fun to show you a way around to rebuilding a deck using the strategies of gem conversion, creatures that synergize with Planeswalkers, removal and draw, based off a favorited deck that we can combo. Let's see, so right now, first step would be to get one of these blood spatters down, and we're going to lock down cloak, because I do want to increase its level. So right now we're just testing the waters of our opponent. Right, okay. Then we're going to flip that, and we're going to match into red, and we're going to get the first cloak down. So it has got hexproof at the moment, so our opponent is going to struggle to remove it. And there we go, we got our first land down, so we've got our gem conversion down. We're going to flip that, and then we're going to lock down World Soul. Now, it's always a good idea to exile cards we don't need. So we'll get rid of the first ability out, and since we've just put cards into exile, we've just fetched 2 cards and they've got full mana. So you can already see that we're synergizing as best as possible. Since these have got full mana, I'm going to get rid of these 2. Keep that one, lock down that one for now. We'll go into this 1, 2, 4 swap, and that did a cascade, and there we go. Perfect. Our opponent's probably about to do something scary. Yes. This Planeswalker is very annoying to face against, because it really does benefit off destroy stuff entering a grave. I want to charge World Soul up as much as possible at this point, because this Planeswalker will benefit highly off doing gem conversion with its abilities. So if we can get World Soul charged up, then we might have a little bit more survivability. They're getting tons of extra swaps, which is not good. I really don't like Curse of Oblivion. Right. There's 1 creature destroyed, and then there's 13 things. Okay, let's cast Rivetous Charm. I don't know why Malignant is not casting. Power 3 and more. I got 4. I don't know why Malignant doesn't want to cast. So there's our draw that's going to act as removal. Sadly, we don't have enough red gems, so they're going to get exiled, which is fine, because this Planeswalker, oh well, that card would have fetched us things. So let's unsubscribe to that one. Well, hit our opponent with it. That's 12 damage. That's perfect. Okay, that's not perfect. This is probably one of the really most annoying abilities ever. But we're into its first, so we can then leave. We got some health gains. Getting health is quite important sometimes. So always hopefully try and find a way to gain health. If you can't, it's not a big thing. But you do sometimes need to try and act fast to win against certain opponents. That was a big conversion, and that is not good. This is not good because deck demonstrating against a Planeswalker that's really, really can screw an opponent over with the amount of conversion and damage it can do based on how many cards enter a graveyard. I don't like this Planeswalker. I don't like playing it, and I don't like facing it, personally. I think it's a good Planeswalker, but it's just a little bit finicky. Oh, they stole my card. How evil. Okay, we'll cast it first. That'll give us a good chunk of health. We don't have any. We do have a 5 match, so that's going to give us a lot of conversions. And that gets us 1 creature out on the board. They're at the 3rd. And they're going to destroy a creature. That is not nice. That is not nice indeed. So we may not win this match. And that's okay. It happens. You know by now I'm a YouTuber who's going to show our losses and our wins just to show how annoying facing certain Planeswalkers are. Okay, so we don't have any conversion, so we're just going to keep hitting our first to survive until we can pull into something we really, really need. At the moment, our opponent is hell-bent on whittling us down as much as possible. The 2 cards in hand that are charged are probably removals, so as soon as we get a creature on the board, we are going to struggle. Okay. We have gem conversion and a removal. I really want to get the gem conversion, the generator out first. So we need to find a good spot for matching. We've got a red match here. It isn't quite what we need. That's dangerous. And our opponent is locked at a 3rd ability because of how much gem conversion and removal they can get from... I keep forgetting his name personally. This annoying card. Well, I can't click on it while it's doing the screen. But basically, this card mills X amount of cards. I think it's 5 cards when it attacks. So it's got enough damage that it can win games, especially with the 3rd. Lord is Xander the Collector. When this creature enters the battlefield, your opponent's cast a card. Yeah, when this creature attacks, destroy the top 5 cards of your opponent's library. The mill 30. Gain 10 loyalty. So if I have 30 cards in my grave, it's going to get 30 loyalty, which is kind of why this opponent is hitting its 3rd so frequently. And now we're going to take a risky move there to try and get a card off the board. And that's fine. That's what we needed. But our opponent is playing havoc. So it's going to be a long game. That's a removal that's going to destroy our gem conversion, which is what I expected to happen. We've got World Soul Rage. If we can survive next turn, then maybe we can have World Soul Rage come down on the battlefield. No. That's a shame, because that amount of gem conversion it's doing, we might have been able to hit our opponent for quite a lot of damage. But it's fine. We have my favorite land card, and we're getting tons of life because our first is just insane. It's probably one of the strongest firsts for life games, because it does go off how many cards you put in your exile. So we're exiling a lot, we're back to full health, so it's fine. The reason I've locked down 1 Guild Pact is I'm worried that next turn our opponent's going to cast a removal spell, And it's not, it's Lord Xander. Urgh. Lord Xander, yeah, removal spell. But Lord Xander was also coming on the board because I've forgotten about this creature's annoying ability to fetch cards from a grave. Okay, so we're gonna 5-swap that. He's got no cards in hand, so yes, good enough gem cascade to pull in the cards we need. I'm running out of cards on my hand, and that's not good. 6. Xander comes down again. Xander's gonna really hit us for a lot of damage. So I'm not gonna be able to get up to my third this turn, which is very bad. Very, very bad. Okay, can you really just stop converting now? I'm gonna fall asleep. Okay, so we've got Well-Told Sage. I know our opponent. Let's lock it down and hope for a miracle. Can I have a miracle? No. Our opponent seems to be very hell-bent on taking away our creature cards. And they've also got health. It's now a war of attrition. Who can survive the longest? Not me, because our opponent is very skilled at removing cards from hand. Good gem conversion is hard to come by. So I think we've lost by next turn if I can't cascade into something good, which I cannot. So next turn we've lost, essentially. Because the bigger the support gets, the more damage it's going to do when a creature card enters the graveyard. Well, any card enters the graveyard, essentially. And that's okay, because sometimes you're not going to always win. If you won every match, then that would be kind of epic, but I've never won every match. So if we survive this, I know I could probably just hit my first and go back to near enough full health, which is evil. But let's just try it for a laugh. Leave no one's talk. There you go. 103 health. Let's go for this 5-swap. And then go for this free match. Cascade down. I was going to enter. That dealt 14 damage to our opponent. That is fine. Oof, that was a huge cascade. If I had World Sword right now, that would have been so good just to hit our opponent in the face. And we've lost our gem conversions unless we get a massive miracle. We're not going to hit our third. And a third is one that we want. Yes, we've hit a third. So this could be a tiebreaker. Yeah. We hit a third and we won. Luck. That was luck. Honestly, that was just luck and a half. And Quinn is kind of very strong, but that was some luck. I don't know how much damage we did. 103 damage. Wow. So that card, this deck is really focused on working on our exile and gem conversion, just try and pull into our first ability to keep exiling creatures that are going to help us with our exile. That is the basic premise of this deck, and we won. So that is how my deck strategy works. It's a 3 simple step of study Planeswalker, gem conversion, creatures or spells or supports that will synergize with your Planeswalker, removal, and draw. Basic steps. Now, the final step I'm going to give you before we end this video is preemptive strike. Now, whenever you build a deck, it is a very good idea just to put all the cards in that look flashy and fun. However, you always want to make sure your deck is preemptively built to slow down your opponent, which is why always two types of removal in a deck should be standard. Always, always, always before you go to build an over the top deck, make sure you have two forms of gem conversion and two forms of removal or stop. Because that may take 4 slots from your deck, but having removal and gem conversion will help you win nearly all your games. And once you have gem conversion and removal, you can then fill your deck with creatures, spells, or spells that will synergize with your Planeswalker, and then you are more than likely to win every game you play. And if you are a beginner, follow those steps to try and win games using mono walkers, because once you get the hang of running a restrictive planeswalker like a mono, you'll then have more freedom when you move to a dual walker, and then more freedom when you work to a tri walker. I wouldn't recommend as a new player using these deck strategies to jump in straight into a tri or duo, because you may not have the cards needed. Whereas here I have a huge collection, so for me it's very easy for me to jump into a duo or a tri-walker following my steps because I have the cards needed. If you try these steps with a limited amount of removal or draw spells with a dual walker, you may run into problems. But again, how you experiment is up to you. There's a lot of creative freedom in Magic, and it's up to you to try your best at having a lot of fun. But I hope these steps help you improve your deck building. And as always, if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see, please hit me up in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful day.